All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Joining me today is my host and co-host, Nesslig. Welcome back.
Hello, hello.
And we have Peter here also. He's in the background.
He's in hiding.
So he's around. he is being omnipresent currently. So
with a very loud tiny dinosaur in the background. Sorry for that.
That's okay. We love him, so that's all right. So we have been going through Nestlig's presentation on the evolution of Pseudosuchia, and so we are going to continue with that today.
Hopefully it will be the last.
All right.
I think if we are quick enough, we can make it until the last slide. Yeah.
All right. Well, I will hand it over to you and take it away.
All right. Let's go. All right. So, okay, I also make it bigger because sometimes I cannot see my own notes. There you go. All right. Thank you. So last time we finished up with the Notosuchians, the very interesting group of like terrestrial cock relatives, and some of which made it until very recently, until 11 million years ago. But now we have finished up with them, and we are going into the next group called the Neosuchia, which translates to new crocs. This group is characterized by being primarily semi-aquatic, but some later members went back onto land, and we will see some of those as well. So this is the point where in the ancestors of the crocodilians, they became semi-aquatic. Yeah. So it starts to become more familiar. Although again, there are many different groups or different families and other groups that have done some interesting things as well, which you don't expect to see among the living ones, at least. But yeah. Also, this group is characterized by the appearance of a particular trait called the Goller valve. This allows crocodilians to, like, while their mouths are opened, they can breathe through their nostrils by closing this Goller valve. And this also allows them to breathe underwater while their nostrils are up in the air and with their mouth still submerged underwater. So this is a very important physical trait that they have, which allows them to basically consume food while they are submerged. You can see some illustrations of that. Like we see a Thalattosuchian above, which is a group that we discussed 2 weeks ago. And then below the Thalattosuchian, we have 2 examples of Neosuchians with the Goller valve. And you can clearly see that the valve is in a very different location. Like in the Thalattosuchian, the Goller valve is a bit further back. But then the shift happened, which allows them to close up the mouth, separating the throat from the throat plus nasal cavity from the mouth. So yeah. I think that's everything I have on this group. Do you have any notes on this, Jackson, or maybe not?
No, makes sense to me.
All right. So next slide. So one main group within the Neosuchians is the Tetrasuchians. It's a very again, just like the Notosuchians, this is another group another stem group of cocks that made it past the KPG extinction event. So unlike, for example, birds, there were I don't believe we have any definite stem groups of birds that made it through the extinction event, or only crown group birds made it through the extinction event. But in crocodilians, their relatives made it several times. Although, again, these eventually went extinct as well. And these didn't, like the Notosuchians survived until 11 million years ago, but these didn't make it as far. They only survived until like just into the Paleogene, as you can see here. So about this group, as far as we know, they were exclusively semi-aquatic, and they split into two groups. The first one is the I trying to pronounce this Pholidosauridae, and the other one is the Dryrosauridae. Not to be confused with the Dryosauridae. The Dryosaurids are a group of dinosaurs, but these are the Dryrosaurids. For the first group, the first group was dominant in the earlier Cretaceous, and this one included a very famous member, the enormous Sarcosuchus, which is like over 11 meters or almost 30 feet in length. It's a very big crocodilian, or crocodilian relative, I should say. It's often nicknamed the super croc, but it is a stem croc, not in part of the crown group, part of the modern diversity that we know. And the diversity of this group peaked at the start of the late Cretaceous, but they were hit pretty hard by an extinction event, not a mass extinction event, but still a extinction event called the Cenomanian-Turonian boundary event, or also called the Oceanic Anoxic Event 2, around 93 million years ago. This is also associated with the extinction of pliosaurs and all but one species of ichthyosaur. This is like the main event that almost killed every single remaining ichthyosaur. Only one species survived this event, only to go extinct a few million years after this event. And the mosasaurs took off after this event. And then we have also the second group, the Dryrosaurids. They survived until they survived this event, and they became also much more diverse after this event. So perhaps they replaced some of the Phylodosaurids that were dominant before. And they spread first from Africa into South America, and some also ended up in North America and India as well. And their diversity peaked during the Paleogene. So after the extinction event that wiped out most of the dinosaurs, they experienced another radiation after the extinction event, and only to go extinct until probably because these were probably cold-blooded. So as the planet cooled down, they probably were like less adapted to the environment compared to other, maybe they also competed with the early whales and such. At least that's my guess. Let's see here, just to see if I have everything covered on my notes.
That is a wacky thought. Yeah. Crocodilians competing with whales. It's a wacky thought.
They were semi-aquatic marine. These Dryrosaurids, like the previously mentioned Pholidosaurids, they were primarily freshwater, although some of them do include, I can repeat myself, I have color-coded the phylogenies here. The cyan, the light blue color indicates freshwater, and the dark blue indicates marine. But they were all semi-aquatic. None of them were fully aquatic. They still went up onto land on occasion. But they were just found in different environments. The dark blue ones are marine, and they probably also interacted with the early whales. And around this time, the early whales were also semi-aquatic as well during this time. Yeah. But I also have one genus mentioned, one not very famous, but I still have heard about this. The one is called the Anthracosuchus, found in the same formation as Titanoboa, which is a pretty famous giant extinct snake. And if you look up Anthracosuchus, you can see a poor croc relative being constricted by a giant snake, basically, the Titanoboa. That's the most famous artwork that you can find on Anthracosuchus. Also, interestingly, Antarctosuchus had a short, robust snout with blunt teeth, and matching bite marks have been found on turtle shells in the same environment. So, most likely, Antarctosuchus was specialized for feeding on turtles. And one late Cretaceous Dinosaur was Brachiosuchus, which is a very funny relative of crocodilians. This one has very disproportionately long legs for a crocodilian relative. Like normally, most semi-aquatic crocs they have short limbs, but this one had a pretty long limbs. All right. So next slide. So here we have the most famous member of this group, the Sarcosuchus. There are some good artwork on this one, and you can see like a silhouette next to a human for scale. It is one of the top 10 largest crocodilian relatives that we know of. And I think you have also heard about this before, Jackson. The super croc, often called.
Yes, I've heard of this guy before.
Yeah. All right, next slide. And also some. I think I mislabeled this slide. It should be called the Folidosaurids, but I think I mistakenly labeled this as the Tyrosaurids. But these are the Folidosaurids. One mistake on my part. So we can see again a few examples. Again, Sarcosuchus in the middle, the biggest one, and we also see some other members of the Folidosaurids. All right, next slide. And these are the Dirosaurids. And we see also Antarctosuchus that I mentioned previously on the bottom right. And in the middle, we have Brachiosuchus with the long limbs in the middle. All right, next slide. So there is also like Brachiosuchus is often also very given much attention by paleoartists because of its uncharacteristically long limbs. And you can see some very
Any
good art.
idea for why they might have had that adaptation?
I have seen some suggestions. Like as you can see in the middle bottom right there, that's an actual image of I don't know what species of crocodilian that is, but it is a real life crocodilian, and they do use their limbs to like sense their environment. So like one proposed explanation for this is that perhaps Brachiosuchus was like living in a very murky estuary where it could only rely on sensing using its limbs, and maybe it enhanced this sense by just making its limbs bigger than normal. That's at least it's just one proposed explanation that I have seen. Yeah,
Okay.
running around. Yeah. All right, next slide. And there are also funny artworks about this genus as well. All right. Do you even lift? Yeah. All right, next slide. So on to the next group within the Neosuchians, we have one family called the Goniofolids, translated to the angled scales, and they are named because their dorsal scutes that they are like they are rectangular. Like in contrast to the modern crocodilians, the modern crocodilian armor is more smaller with circular or oval shaped osteoderms, but these have like pretty rectangular plates, as you can see them in the images right there. And they also have and these armor are also interlocking. Again, modern crocodilians, their armor on their backs don't interlock with each other, but in this case they have a very solid plate almost on their backs. And they also have on their bellies, they also have these polygon shaped armor on their bellies as well. Again, most living crocs have no bony armor on their belly side. There's a very big difference. Although apart from this main difference in their armor, they were pretty much ecologically very similar to the modern crocodilians. They did almost everything that the modern crocodilians do, just being in the water and preying on fish, and also probably also on terrestrial animals as well. Yeah. All right, next slide. Also, one thing I forgot to mention was like as it was mentioned in the previous slide, the goniophobids have 2 rows of dorsal armor, but modern crocodilians have 4 rows of dorsal armor. It's also one main difference. And we see another artwork by Mark P. Witten showing off the genus Goniopholis, the genus that gives the family also the same name. All right, next slide. So now we move into like in the previous slides, I gave in the phylogeny, I did not include many other groups as well, but now I include many more groups that now I have more room to show these other groups as well within the Neosuchians. So now we also have many other ones which we will cover in a few minutes. But first we have like one main group within the Neosuchians, which is called Eusouchia, the true crocs. Again, not yet the crown group. We are still not in the crown group yet, but they are included within the Eusouchians. And the Eusouchians are characterized by having the internal nasal opening called the choana, so that the openings of the nose at the back of the throat, basically. And these have been completely surrounded by a pair of skull bones called the pterygoids. So previously, we saw that in the ancestors of the crocodilians, if I remember correctly, the group is called the Mesoeucrocodilia, and they are characterized by having a secondary palate. But now this has been the internal nasal openings have now been fully surrounded by the pterygoids as well as the palates, the palatines specifically. So, and what other characteristics of this group is they have a different arrangement of their vertebrae. Like previously, the vertebrae were pro-stilus. Basically, what this means is, now they are pro-stilus. Previously, they were amphistilus. The amphistilus vertebrae is basically both ends of the vertebrae are concave. But now one side of the vertebrae is convex. So one end is now turned convex, as opposed to the previous configuration with both ends of the vertebrae being concave. And also we see also a very different transition in the armor as well. Like previously, we've seen that the armor were formed as plates, 2 rows of plates, but now we see the armor has now turned into small circular with 4 rows of small circular osteoderms. So I haven't seen exactly why we see these traits appearing at this time, but if I were to make a guess, all these things, like the trunk becomes more because of the reduction in the dorsal armor, the trunk becomes more flexible, and we also see a reinforcement in the vertebrae as well with the convex end of one of the vertebrae ends. One being concave and one being convex. So it's probably reinforcing the vertebrae or the vertebral column. And we also see again in the skull, I would suspect that with the choana being completely surrounded by the pterygoids, it makes the skull more robust to resistance. So if I were to take a personal guess, again, I haven't seen this myself, but anything mentioned other than this, but I would suspect that this is the time we see the death roll appear. At least that's my best guess. Again, I haven't seen. I was trying to look for any explanation for all these traits appearing at this time, but I think we can expect to see the death roll appearing in this case. At least to me. Do you have anything? Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense to me. But I'm not a crocodilian expert. But
yeah.
I would.
Yeah. But we know at least like all modern crocodilians, except for the a dwarf. I believe. I forgot which specific species. Either the dwarf crocodile or a species of caiman. All except for one species. Every single species of crocodilian does the death roll. So it's probably a very ancient behavior among them, maybe even older. And I think this is the best. This at least if I were to make a bet, I would say that this is where the death roll appeared in the ancestry of crocodilians. Yeah. All right. Next slide. So one group, again, as you can see in the phylogeny, there are some other groups shown here. And I have seen very conflicting results regarding the phylogeny. So sometimes this group is like either within Eusuchians or just outside Eusuchians. So at least this is the best way how I can summarize the relationships between these the upcoming groups that I am now mentioning. So one of them is the Adiposaurids. These were pretty smallish for croc relatives, mostly from Europe, and they also show evidence of perhaps semi-aquatic affinities, but primarily terrestrial adaptation. So they probably spent most of their lives on land as opposed to in the water. They probably still were semi-aquatic, but they were primarily terrestrial, at least according to some studies, based on their snout morphology. And also, Adiposaurids were possibly sister to the Paralligatoridae, or placed within the Eusuchians, as I mentioned previously. So there's some disagreement on exactly where this group belongs within the Eusuchians. All right, next slide. So it is the Paralligatoridae. I believe they were named because they were thought to be related to the alligators, so they were named alongside the alligatorids. But now they are not very close, at least not very close to the crown group, at least. So these, most of them lived during the Cretaceous, and most are from Asia. A few from North America as well, and also one from Africa. One genus called Batrachomimus is the oldest from the late Jurassic from South America. And we also have a recent described genus from last year, Tarsomordeo, which appears to be terrestrial as well. So we see another croc relative that have become terrestrial from semi-aquatic.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Batrachomimus mean like frog mimic?
I think so, yeah. But
which is an odd name. I wonder what the backstory for that name is.
I'm not sure either.
Oh, anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it may. I don't know. Let's see. This genus was described in 2013, sorry, the Tarsomordeo was described in 2019, so not as recent as I was saying just a moment ago. But
I found it.
Still
did you open it? Or? So the Wikipedia page says, in reference to the holotype specimen being originally identified as that of a temnospondyle.
Ah, that makes sense. Yeah. So the original specimen was first mistaken for a temnospondyle, a stem amphibian. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. So again, this was something we mentioned before, that taxonomy can be very weird, where names can translate into one thing, but they not always mean that one thing, and sometimes they can be named for a completely different reason, and the name just gets stuck. And this is another good example of this. It was originally believed to be an amphibian relative, but we now know it is a croc relative. All right, next slide. Get some water. All right, so next we see another interesting group called the Stomatosuchids. They are called, like the name translates to mouthed croc, but they are also often nicknamed the pancake croc because they have these very wide, flat skulls.
Flat Boy Friday.
Yeah, extremely like the specific name that they often use is called the platyrostral, which is a name given to flat and wide snout shapes. So they are they probably had very weak jaws, so they didn't go after like large prey items. They probably ate like fish or using a method of gulp feeding. And they also have been hypothesized to possess like a pelican-like throat pouch to do this. This is very different from what we see in modern crocodilians. Like no modern crocodilian has a shape like this. So yeah, this thing had a very different feeding style than most modern crocodilians have. Also, one genus called let's see here. I believe yes, one genus, Stomatosuchus, was very big. Like again, probably one of the top 10 largest croc relative that we know of. All right, next slide. And here we see another group, Pseudosuchidae. Crocs that are very, very sus. No, they're not. They were named in honor of a researcher called Susan Hansen, and they are named in honor of her. So they are primarily from South America and Australia, and they also exhibit some transitional traits. Like I mentioned before, that the Eusuchians have a new type of dorsal armor. They have now 4 rows instead of the original 2. And I believe this group also has the 4 rows as well. So they have osteoderms typical of the Eusuchians, but they retain some primitive vertebrae shape. Like again, I mentioned the convex shape of the anterior end in vertebrae, but now this group still had both ends being concave, the primitive condition. And also, one interestingly about the pterygoids, again, in modern groups, the pterygoid bones completely surround the internal nasal openings, but in Pseudosuchidae, it's right on the edge. It's almost, but not completely surrounding the internal nasal openings. So right on the transitional edge. All right. So again, we can add this to another list of another example of a transitional fossil to our list. Yeah. All right, next slide. Next group is called the Bernisartidae. Again, I hope I pronounced the name correctly. These are called the snail-eating crocs because they show some very interesting teeth shapes, like very, very blunt teeth and also very blunt-shaped snouts as well. So they are probably very durophagous and eating on like shelled mollusks. So again, a very different lifestyle to what we see in modern crocodilians. All right, next slide. And another group is called the Hyliochampsidae, called the forest crocs. Again, it's also a similar thing. They have very short snouts with blunt-shaped teeth. So again, another group of extremely durophagous adapted croc relatives. And we also have one genus which also had multi-cusped teeth. So they were perhaps omnivorous or even herbivorous as well. Again, very different from from the modern crocodilians that we have today. All right, next slide. And we have another family of crocodilian relatives called the Aegyptosuchidae. As the name suggests, they are from Egypt. And not a lot of is known about these. Like we mostly know from a fragmentary remain of a skull and teeth and vertebrae. They were classified as close relatives to the aforementioned Stomatosuchids, which is why many art depictions have restored them as having the same flat, wide-shaped snouts. So they perhaps did look like that, but we don't know for sure if they actually looked like that or not. So there's this one is a very big question mark on exactly how they looked like. But we do know that one genus, the Aegisuchus, it had a shield on top of its skull. At least we know that is true. So very oddly shaped ornamentation on the top of the skull, right there. All right, next slide. Next group, the Allodaposuchidae. And these are exclusively
Dapper
Allo
Suchians?
Allodaposuchids.
Dapper the crocodiles? No.
Dapper. I should have put a top
A
hat
little
on.
top hat. Yeah, a little top hat. That's okay.
All right. No. And these are from exclusively from Europe, or at least the southern Europe region. These are definitely within the Eusouchia, but their exact phylogeny within Eusouchia, as I mentioned, is a bit in dispute. They are often placed as sister to the aforementioned Hyliochampsids. It's a one possible relationship. And there are also studies that conclude they are a paraphyletic to the modern crocodilians. So perhaps the crown group of crocodilia descended from this family. Or alternatively, the Allodaposuchids are part of the crown group of crocodilia. Again, some questions about exactly the relationships between these. And also, this particular species, Allodaposuchus hawkeye, this one was named after the Incredible Hulk for some reason. All right.
I mean, why
slide.
not? If you can, why not? I mean, you've heard of the well, it's not a trilobite; it's an aglaspidid called a Han Solo. So
because it's from the Han region, and it is the only one of a genus.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny because, like, I don't know, have you seen the movie Han Solo?
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently the lore of Han Solo's name is like, do you have any family? No, I'm alone. Han Solo.
Yeah.
Like it's really funny that it's basically the same reasoning that the fossil was also named.
I think it was named by Sam Turvey, I believe, and I think that it was a joke though. Like trying to come up with this like actual like reasoned out name for it was kind of a joke because he was like, I just wanted to name something after Han Solo, so
yeah,
or a Star Wars character or whatever it was. So yeah.
Yes. All right, next slide. And we also have one genus called the Borealosuchus, the northern crocs. We have 6 described species from this genus, and they also span the extinction event. So we have some species before the extinction event and also some species after the extinction event. Pretty interesting. They are sometimes placed within the crown group of crocodilia, but also sometimes outside just the crown group. There's also a fun trivia about like one species. The species Borealosuchus thriensis was named in reference to the exit 3 of the New Jersey Turnpike, which is the closest highway exit to the type locality. And like as the paper says in the authors state in the paper, in reference to a question every New Jersey resident encounters when traveling. Oh, you're from New Jersey? Which exit? So sometimes the paleontologists get pretty creative when they are naming a new species.
Pretty funny.
Yeah. Also, we have a super chat.
Oh, sorry. Okay. My unfinished journey for $2.22. Hail Nero, Jax, and Ness. Hail Pseudosuchians. Boom.
Yeah, indeed.
Thank
Hail Pseudosuchia. All right, next slide. And this is like one of my favorite rock relatives. And you probably have heard about these before. They are now called the Planocranidae, but they used to go by a different name called the Pristochampsines, with the genus called Pristochampsus. But now that species name is the genus name. Sorry, the genus name Pristochampsus is now considered a nomen dubium, or a dubious named.
No.
And so indeed. And it's now reassigned to the genus Bovarisuchus. So they now have a new name. So yeah. Again, taxonomy is weird. So they are trying to be they have like a convention where what was it called again? The priority of first name or something like that. How do you call it again?
Yeah,
Priority.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so basically, if a new specimen is discovered, it always gets to the same name as the first, as the way the first specimen was named. For example, if you have two specimens, first one is called A, and the second one is called B. But later we discovered, like, oh no, they are part of the same genus. So, but then the first name gets priority. So A gets priority over B. Not always, but most of the time it's happened like that. Yeah.
Right.
And I believe it's also the case with like Tyrannosaurus Rex. So that's one exception. So if am I wrong with that? I believe they like T-Rex is technically speaking not a valid name under the priority rule, but luckily, yeah.
Well, is it not?
I've
like Dinosaurus, or sorry, what was it, like Dinosaurus and the other one? Hold on, I'm actually curious now. Is it not?
Like I've heard about that. I think, technically speaking, there was an earlier name for one specimen, but T-Rex was such a popular and widely used name.
Manospondylus. Let's see.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it says Manospondylus was 1892, whereas Tyrannosaurus Rex was 1905.
Yeah. But since Tyrannosaurus was so widely in use, even among paleontologists, it's basically got stuck like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh well.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Well, moving on with this particular group, these crocs are often called the hoofed croc relatives because they walked primarily on land, and they have like thickened nails, basically hooves. Not the same that you would find on like horses, of course, but still they have like thickened toenails on their feet and hands. So they were, again, similar to the last time we mentioned the Sebacids. They were also like terrestrial land-walking predators. So these and the Sebacids were like among the first terrestrial apex predators of the Cenozoic before the mammals took over as the predator niche. Like first among mammals, the earlier ones were the Mesonychids, and then the Creodonts were the primary predatory mammals, and of course now the carnivorans are the main land-walking predators that we have today. Yeah, and before the mammals, these croc relatives were the first apex predators of the Cenozoic after the extinction of most of the dinosaurs. All right, next slide. Oh, before I forgot to mention that the group that I just mentioned before, they are either classified as just within or just outside the crown group of crocodilians. So yeah, but now we have moved definitely we have now moved within the crown group of crocodilia. So every single crocodilian that's alive today belongs within this group. So yay, we finally made it.
We did it! Yay!
Yeah. So now we go into their relationship. So there is also some. I think now it's pretty much settled, but there was in the first, like when genetic studies were a bit new and such, and people began to study crocodilians using genomics, some controversy was starting up. So first, based on morphology, we believe that crocodilians were related as it's shown on the left. So first we have like the gharial as the first one splitting off of the rest, and then we have two groups: the alligatorids on the bottom, and then the crocodilids in the middle. And we also have the false gharial was believed to be a relative of the crocodilians or the crocodiles specifically. So and that is why it is named the false gharial. It was believed like, oh, its snout shapes looked a bit like the gharial, but we think it is a relative to the crocodiles. So we can name it the false gharial. But now, after we did some genetic studies, we have seen that now the false gharial is in fact actually a close relative of the gharial. So now it's more like what's shown on the right, with the gharial and false gharial as its closest living relative, and then again the other relationships are more or less the same thing. Although there is one change, we see that the slender snouted crocodiles are actually more closer to the dwarf crocodiles than they are to the true crocodiles. So there are some shifts that have happened since now we have added DNA studies in addition to the morphological studies as well. So yeah, the false gharial is in fact a false gharial. It is in fact a gharial in a sense.
It's gharialception.
Yeah, gharialception. Yeah. All right, next slide. There's also some other interesting traits that all modern crocodilians have shared. They have a special type of hemoglobin that is allosterically regulated by what's it called again? But like when CO2 is dissolved in water, or what's the chemical again called?
Oh, carbonic acid.
It's carbonic acid. So what happens is when you stop breathing, the carbon dioxide level in your blood start to rise, and some of it turns into carbonic acid. But in crocodilians, they have a unique way they regulate their hemoglobin. The hemoglobin responds to carbonic acid, which helps them release more oxygen into the blood. So it's a very effective way so they can make use of as much oxygen as they can have stored, basically. It's a very different type of hemoglobin that we have or other animals have. It's a very unique adaptations they have in their hemoglobin. All right, next slide. Just get some water. Sorry.
How dare you?
Yeah, sometimes I need to drink a bit. Yeah. All right. So again, there's a misconception that the crocodilians are like living fossils. So if you look in the fossil record, you will see the same crocodilian as there always were. But no, in fact, even the snout shapes have changed a lot since their ancestry. So if you see, for example, here we see, or we often learn that crocodile and the alligator have different snout shapes. The crocodile has a V-shaped snout with interlocking teeth from top and bottom. But in the alligator has an overbite. So you only see the top, the teeth from the top jaw sticking out, but none from the lower snout. And the alligator has also a much wider snout shape. But then, if you look in the fossil record, neither the crocodile snout nor the alligator snout is ancient. They both evolved from a very different configuration that no longer exists. So if you see here on the bottom left, you see an ancient relative of an alligator, and also the relatives to the crocodiles also had a similar snout as this alligatorid. They have a mix of both. They have both an overbite, like the alligators, but they also have like lower teeth sticking out from the bottom jaw as well. So very different from what both the alligators and the crocodiles have. So again, they are not living fossils. They are still very different from what their ancestors were in the specific morphology of their snouts. All right, next slide. And you see a quick overview of the distribution of the crocodilians. The alligatorids are mostly confined to the Americas, like South America has most of the caimans. And we also see an alligator, or the American alligator in like the south of North America. We also have the Chinese alligator in Asia, all the way over on the right of the global map. But crocodilians or the crocodiles have like a almost pan-tropical distribution. We have crocodiles in East Asia and also in Australia, and we have like many of them also in Africa, and also a few of them are also in the New World, in the Americas as well. The crocodiles. And the gharials, they are very narrow distribution. The gharials are only found like the Indian gharial in India, and we also have the false gharial in Indonesia as well. So not as widely distributed. All right, next slide. So now we move into like one branch of the crown group of crocodilians is the alligatoroids, the alligatorids and their relatives. The earliest fossils we have come from North America, which makes sense in the sense that modern alligatorids are also found in North America as well. But it seems that all of them started out in North America, and later some of them spread to South America and also Europe. But now, of course, none are known from Europe today, so they are now extinct over there. And among the early members, they include the giant Deinosuchus. Again, another famous relative of the crocodilians.
It made an appearance in the Nigel Marven show back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this time it's a true crocodilian within the crown group, Deinosuchus. Like again, one of the among the top 10 largest crocodilians and largest pseudosuchians even that ever existed. Yeah. And also there's also a group called the globidons. Well, within the alligatoroids, there's a group called the globidons, which are named after them having blunt-shaped teeth. Also within the globidons, the toothed notch was lost. Again, I mentioned before that in the ancestors, so both crocodiles and alligators, they have the teeth from their lower jaw stick upwards through a notch in their snout. But now in this case, the notch was lost. So now the alligatorids have an overbite with no lower teeth sticking out. And also the earlier members had blunt-shaped, rounded teeth. They were probably durophagus. Probably went after tough-shelled prey as well. But of course, in a sense, the living alligatorids, they revert to a less specialized state. So now, instead of having the blunt-shaped teeth for crushing shells, now the alligatorids are now more generalized. They go after different food items too. So it goes against a law that was proposed by Edward Drinker Cope, which he was an orthogenicist or orthogenist, who was like, he proposed the law that unspecialized animals evolve to become more specialized over time. But now here we see a reverse case. The modern alligatorids became less specialized as they evolved from a more specialized ancestor. All right, next slide. And again, another good artwork by Mark P. Witten. Again, Mark P. Witten is a very good artist. I believe he's also a paleontologist as well, right? Like he has paper published too. I believe so. But he has also very good artwork. And again, one artwork showing off the enormous Deinosuchus. Again, this like I mentioned before, the Sarcosuchus, the super croc, but Sarcosuchus had like a very narrow, long, narrow snout, so it probably wasn't very robust. But Deinosuchus had a very robust skull, so it probably was more able to go after like big prey items. So it probably ate dinosaurs as well. So, next slide. So now within the alligatoroids, we see one subfamily called the subfamily of caimans and their relatives. And they are distinguished from the alligators by a lack of a bony septum in the nostrils. So alligators have a bony septum in the nostrils, but caimans lack that. And also caimans have ventral bony scutes. And the alligators don't have these bony scutes on the belly side. And they also have relatively longer teeth compared to the alligators. So but it's also the case that the caimans are, like today, they are very small. They are like caimans are among the smallest modern crocodilians, but that is definitely not the case for some of the extinct relatives. Like one extinct relative of the caimans is called Purosaurus. This one is one of, if not the largest croc relative that ever existed, the largest Pseudosuchian that we know of. And it is a close relative of the caiman. In fact, it's probably within the crown group of caimans. So some modern caimans are more closely related to the Purosaurus than other caimans are. It's pretty wild to think about.
That is pretty wacky.
Yeah. And we also have another giant caiman called, or caiman relative called Murasuchus, which was a pancake croc. Again, another flat-snouted gulp feeder. And we also have shell crushers, one genus Gnetasuchus, which has like a blunt, again, another one that has blunt-shaped teeth for crushing shells. And these they were also living alongside one another in the most ecologically diverse croc communities that ever existed. So they are, like, again, very different types of feeding strategies coexisting among each other in the same environment. All right, next slide. And what environment was it? Well, about the environment, again, and that's a lot of interesting story to tell. They were all the ones that I previously mentioned were all from South America. And South America had a very interesting geological history. So early on in the early Cenozoic, the north of South America was like invaded by a shallow sea. But as the Andean mountain range was formed over time, the sea was later disconnected from the Caribbean. And the inland sea slowly transformed into a wetland, which was probably the largest wetland ecosystem that ever existed during this time. The largest wetland ecosystem, which is also called the Pebas mega wetland ecosystem. And then later, as the geology began to change even more, eventually these wetlands started to drain at the east side of the continent, which formed the Amazon River. But before the Amazon, this wetland supported the most ecologically diverse community of crocodilians that ever existed. All right, next slide. So we see these. Like in this graph, you can see the skull-shaped plotted on a morphograph. So the y-axis denotes the width of the snout, with the broad-snouted are on top and narrow-snouted are on the bottom. And on the x-axis, it shows the length of the snout. So short-snouted on the left and the long-snouted are on the right. And you can see many different genera plotted on this graph based on their snout shape. And you can see that the ones that are highlighted are all from this Pebas mega wetland ecosystem. So we have like a very diverse, also morphologically diverse community of croc relatives living in this one ecosystem, all at the same time. All right, next slide. Have you ever heard about the Pebas mega wetland, Jackson?
I actually hadn't. I was not familiar with that.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that would be really neat to know more about that. I wonder if we have like cichlid fossils from that area or something.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's good that you mentioned actually, because I also remember that like today the Amazon also includes like many odd fish families that which are primarily saltwater. So you have like freshwater sea bass and freshwater smelt, freshwater
Yes.
herring, and
Um,
freshwater pufferfish in
yes.
the Amazon.
We get
Yeah,
the same or similar stuff in like Southeast Asia. There are some
yeah.
freshwater pufferfish or brackish pufferfish. Yeah, it was like pea puffers, things like that. Um, yeah. I mean, of course, they have their weird groups like the Mormirids. The nope, sorry, not the Mormirids. Oh shoosh. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. What is that group called? Hold on. Uh, what is that freaking group? Oh, the gymnotiforms. There we go. Like the electric eel. The other uh fish that can use electricity to sense their environment, and then of course that was kind of co-opted as like a weapon in guys like the electric eel. But yeah, there are lots of really cool fish in the Amazon. Lots of really neat stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
It's probably the many. It's probably because like it was originally as I mentioned before, it was originally an inland sea, which
mhm.
slowly transitioned into a freshwater wetland ecosystem. So it's probably because of that we have like many originally saltwater groups that have now become freshwater in the
I can't
Amazon.
I can't even
Yeah.
imagine like the diversity that must have existed in that inland sea. It must
Yeah.
have been in terms of fish, it must have been insane. Truly
Right.
awe-inspiring. So
Yeah, and you also correspondingly you also have like again, as I mentioned now, as I'm now highlighting here, an insane diversity of crocodilians as well. Like again, you see some caiman relatives over here. A one weird one which has like teeth sticking through its snout, like a boar almost, like that. And also we have again Gnetosuchus on the bottom right with its blunt-shaped teeth, crushing mollusk shells. Yeah, it's an insane amount of morphological disparity found within this community. All right, next slide. Also, you may have wondered that like Purosaurus was very big and it probably went after large prey. And you may also remember that in South America you have also these giant ground sloths. And indeed, we have found some ground sloth bones showing teeth marks that exactly matches those teeth of Purosaurus as well. So yes, this probably happened on South America at one point with Purosaurus like going after a giant ground sloth. All right, next slide. And also a good, again, another good artwork showing some.
oh, I completely forgot. Yeah, the freaking dolphins in the Amazon.
Yes.
Yeah, that would have been another intriguing thing. Are there any? Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So there are dolphin fossils from this area. That's fascinating.
Yeah, like we do. It's also interesting. Like I accidentally found this recently from last year that like we have like one fossil of like even today the Amazon has a river dolphin,
Mhm.
but like this fossil is probably not closely related to the modern river dolphin. Like this fossil, like Pebanista, is more closely related to the Indian river dolphin. It's pretty wild.
That
at
is
least like
very weird. That is very
yeah.
weird.
Yeah. So it's a bit like I'm not sure. Like at first I was like, isn't this like maybe a convergent evolution?
Right.
Like, are
Yeah.
you sure? No, you're not. Are you sure this is not more closely related to the Amazon river dolphin? No, no, no. The authors are pretty sure that Pebanista is more closely related to the Indian river dolphin than it is to the Amazon river dolphin. So it's probably the case that the Amazon used to have a river dolphin more closely related to the Indian river dolphin, and then it became extinct, and it was replaced by a new river dolphin, which is completely independent from this river dolphin. Yeah, it's very, very weird. Yeah, and you also have like, maybe you cannot see that, but in the distant background, you have Murasuchus just sitting or
Chilling.
laying like chilling on the banks near capybara relatives. Yeah. All right, next slide. Oh, okay. You go back for 1 minute. I think I forgot to mention one. Like you have also one other croc relative on the right there, Gripposuchus. That is a gavialoid, a relative of the gharials. So and we will get to those later. Yeah. All right, next slide. So now we see the living caimans, and today there are three. I believe there are. There's one. Oh, no, there are three genera. This is the first genus, caiman. Very, very simply named, of course. Yeah, and you have 3 species within this genus, and they are all from South America, but also one species, the spectacled caiman, is also from Central America as well. And they are eating fish, crabs, snails, and also various invertebrates and such. So they are very, very generalist when it comes to that diet. Yeah. All right. And they are also good for them. They are also not very endangered, luckily, for these 3. At least according to the assessments from 2016, 2019, they are not endangered according to that assessment. So I hope that didn't change, but still, yeah. All right, next slide. So now the second genus of the caimans is Melanosuchus, the black caiman. It is not the largest, but it is the longest of the alligatorids. And the largest is of course the American alligator is the largest by mass, but this one is a bit longer than the American alligator. They are also from South America, and also not very endangered. Although their conservation status was like they were at the brink of extinction for being hunted for their leather between 1950 and 1970. But luckily conservation efforts has brought them back. So now they are still conservation dependent, but they're no longer in danger of going extinct. Luckily, and they are also pretty aggressive actually. So they do attack humans if you are not careful. All right. Next slide. And again, if you have any comments on any species, Jackson, you can always interrupt me as I go.
I saw Cuvier's dwarf caiman at a zoo once. I saw the picture of it on the sign first, and I thought to myself, "There's no way it looks like that." And then I looked down and I said, "Oh crap, he does look exactly like that." So I thought that was kind of funny. He's the angriest looking little guy. He just looks so mad.
Yeah, you can see that. You can also see the other dwarf caiman, Schneider's dwarf caiman. It also has like this bony shelf or bony eyebrow, which also makes it look like it's frowning. Yeah. So yeah, so the Cuvier's dwarf caiman is, I believe, it is the smallest of all crocodilians. Like all crocodilians, even including the crocodiles and such. So it is the smallest of all living crocodilians that we know of. Yeah. And let's see here. I won't go every single. I won't go over every single note that I have. So, but if you are interested, you can all read my notes on the slide to see what their main diets are and what their main behaviors are. So yes, in this case, I see they are also very terrestrial. Surprisingly, like they both the species tend to make burrows to shelter and cool themselves during the dry season. So so when it's dry outside, they go on land, make burrows to keep themselves cool. Yeah, very interesting. All right, next slide. So now we have now covered the caimans. So now we move on to the other group within the alligatorids, the alligators. And we also see so many interesting relatives or extinct relatives of these as well. Unfortunately we don't have any giants within this group. Like as I mentioned before, the Purosaurus among the caimans. This is also like a very big one, but we have no giants among the alligator relatives. But we still have some interesting.
I mean,
forms.
You say that, and then you see a 15-foot alligator, and you know.
Yeah. Relatively speaking, like Purosaurus is like 3 times as big, or how many times is it? Yeah. Relatively speaking, yeah. But we still have some interesting members. Like you have one called the Ceratopsuchus, which is a horned, a one with horns on the back of its skull. So very interesting that we have again a crocodilian with horns too. And we will see. We also see other ones as well among the crocodiles. Some of them also are called horns too. All right, next slide. And there's also some interesting thing to mention about the paleobiogeography of the alligators. As you may know, of course, the American alligator is in America. We also have the Chinese alligator in China, and we are pretty sure that all alligatorids, including the alligators, they all started in North America. So at some point, the ancestor to the Chinese alligator must have like crossed from North America into Asia, and probably it probably did so during the time when we had a land bridge, the Beringia land bridge between North America and Asia. You may think this is very unlikely because, like again, crocodilians are cold-blooded. They don't do very well in cold climates. But interestingly, the alligators are relatively cold adapted. They are the only living crocodilians that can handle areas where temperatures can reach below freezing.
Yes, and they have a really neat little trick that they do when like lakes or ponds freeze. They will stick their snouts up, and so like the water will freeze, and so they'll be stuck there, but their snout is above the water, and they can handle it just fine.
Yeah, and they also do a thing called brumating. Like you know that hibernating is a thing that some mammals do to last the winter, but like some reptiles, like the alligators, they also do a similar thing, but it's technically called brumating because they do something different in terms of their metabolism. I believe, if I remember correctly, maybe you can correct me on this, but like in hibernation, the mammals are living off their fat stored. That's hibernating. But reptiles, they like alligators, they don't have a lot of fat, so they live mostly on carbohydrates stored.
Well, and it's also they're not going into a deep sleep necessarily. They're more just kind of slowing down. So it's like their metabolism slows greatly, but it's not like a dormouse where you could like pick it up, you know, and it doesn't even know that you've messed with it. But yeah, we at the aquarium, our snapping turtles, once it starts getting a bit cooler outside, they don't eat as much, so you don't really have to feed them nearly as much through the winter and into the spring until it starts getting warmer, and then they'll start taking food again.
Yeah. It's also interesting to mention that, like in hibernation, where when mammals live off their stored fat, like when you metabolize fat, it also releases water, which they can use. So in the case they can like a mammal hibernate, they can just stay asleep even without having to drink, basically, because they can use the metabolic water that they can release from their fat. But brumating reptiles, they cannot do that. They have to stay awake to go to drink on occasion, of course. Yeah, as you mentioned, they don't have like a deep sleep. They are very, very inactive. They just
they're just lazy.
Yeah, just very very lazy. Yeah, but yeah. We also have some interesting things about the Chinese alligator. They used to be a lot more widespread among Asian. Like we even have fossils of the Chinese alligator from the island of Japan, even. So they also made it over there. The Chinese alligator. So the Chinese alligator used to be the Asian alligator in a sense, because it wasn't just from China alone. But of course nowadays it's very restricted to a very specific area within China. It's also very endangered as well. Next slide. So yeah. So again, you have the American alligator. It is now the heaviest alligatorid that we know of, reaching like 500 kilograms or over 1,000 pounds. It's also the apex predator found within its area. It's also interesting to mention is the American alligator is very chill relative to other crocodilians. Like zookeepers can attest that taking care of the American alligator in a zoo is not very difficult. Like, of course, they still need to be careful, of course, because they can still bite, of course, but they aren't very aggressive relative to the other crocodilians. So American alligators are rather chill by comparison. And also, also about the conservation, they used to be endangered in the 1960s because of the leather trade, and I believe they are also hunted for their meat as well. But then, due to conservation efforts, they recovered since the 1980s. So now the American alligator is no longer considered to be endangered.
So, fun fact: I can't remember who it was. Some conservative. I think it was Project 2025. Actually, I think it was where that came from. Said that the Endangered Species Act is a monumental failure, when over 90% of the organisms that have been put under the jurisdiction of the Endangered Species Act are still around.
Mm-hmm.
But it says it's a monumental failure. Well, that's what we call in the business a fat lie. They're just wrong. They're just lying. They know they're lying. Like, it's not hard to look up that information.
Right. Yeah.
Same for the paddlefish. Same for the American buffalo, the bald eagle, a bunch of other American animals.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Yeah. Although, unfortunately, we also had the Chinese alligator, which is we do have some conservation of them. So they are like let's see here. There are now. I found some sources which mention that there are like about 20,000 individuals in captivity for breeding programs, but in the wild, there are only about like 300 in the wild populations, 300 individuals of Chinese alligators. So yeah, they are very struggling, unfortunately. So hopefully the breeding programs can like reinvigorate their wild populations.
Sadly, the Chinese paddlefish went extinct recently. It is thought to have gone extinct in 2019. I guess their breeding programs weren't as successful as the ones we had here in the U.S. for the American paddlefish, sadly. So, because they have quite different morphologies, even though they look pretty similar. The American paddlefish is a filter feeder, whereas the Chinese paddlefish ate smaller fish. So.
Right. Next slide. So now we've covered the alligatorid. So now we move on to the third lineage of the crocodilians, the gavialoids. And also I think I forgot to mention that like I mentioned that we used to think that the gharial was like an early divergent lineage within the crocodilians. But now we think that the false gharial and the gharial are each other closely living relatives, but also the gharials are more closely related to the alligators than they are to the. Oh no, so sorry, I completely wrong. The gharials are more closely related to the crocodiles than they are to the alligators. So now they now are more closely related to the crocodiles than instead of being an early offshoot of the crocodilians. Also, one interesting to note is that even though the modern species of the gharial and the false gharial, which are exclusively freshwater, it's remarkable to consider that their fossil record is filled with marine forms, which were they were semi-aquatic, but they were also found in marine ecosystems, and they also have a very widespread pan-tropical distribution. So many of them are found in Africa, and also a few of them are found in South America as well as Indonesia, and also a few of them are from Europe as well. Very, very widespread distributions in the fossil record. So they probably were let's see here. They probably start out in. I don't know exactly where they start out. The earliest fossils are from Europe. I see. Yeah, that's the earliest relative of the gharials from Europe. But then they just moved all over the place. They went from South America to Africa, and eventually only the living ones are still left in India and Southeast Asia. Yeah, and it's probably the reason for their narrow distribution nowadays is because during the Cenozoic the climate cooled down significantly, and we also have a loss of shallow seas. When the sea level was used to be a lot higher in the past, but now the loss of these shallow seas due to falling sea levels probably doomed many of these gharial relatives to extinction. And we also have many also within the gharials, which also some giant relatives like Cryptosuchus and Ramphosuchus. They are also among the top 10 biggest crocodilians that we know of. All right, next slide. And there are too many gharial relatives to cover, but there is one interesting genus with some lore behind it. It's called the Hanyu-Suchus, which was described in 2022. It is a transitional fossil between the false gharial and the true gharial. Broadly speaking, its morphology is very similar to the false gharial, but it possessed a key gharial feature. The pterygoid bulla is a vocal structure that male gharials have, which they use to make these vocal sounds to attract mates. Hanyu-Suchus also had this vocal structure as well. So it's it has some false gharial traits and some true gharial traits. So another good transitional fossil that we have added onto our long list. Also interesting to mention is that the Hanyu-Suchus lived in South China until only a few centuries ago. So within historical times, it survived. And we also have some historical records of a 6 meter or 20 feet long croc attacking humans and livestock. And they also have been described as making these thunder-like sounds in the night, probably by using these vocal structures that I previously mentioned. So the descriptions are probably pretty accurate when it comes to this. Also, the Hanyu-Suchus is named after the poet and politician Han Yu. And this is also a funny story. Han Yu wrote the historical document, The Warning to the Crocodile. Within the document, it's been recorded that he offered pig and goat to the crocs and demanded that they leave the Han River Delta and the Bad Creek, while threatening to kill them if they did not comply with his demands. They probably didn't listen, I would imagine.
It's always sad hearing about stuff like this, you know. Like there was a what was it? I think it was a species of gibbon that survived until like historic times that went extinct
Yes.
like just a couple hundred years ago, whatever, you know, like stuff like that. It's always really sad.
Yeah, I believe you mentioned that in the gibbon tale too, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but I guess
Yeah.
one. If I remember correctly, Lady Xia, like the grandmother of China's first emperor, I believe. Like she
Something like
she
that, yeah.
possessed like a menagerie of exotic animals, and one of the exotic animals that she had was like an extinct gibbon species. Yeah, very interesting. All right, next slide.
Jackson, so you're saying the gibbon survived until it got sick?
Huh.
Sorry,
So funny.
had to.
So yeah, as I mentioned, the relatives of the gharial were a lot more widespread than they are now today. Like we have a few of them also from South America, and probably the ancestors to the modern gharial are also from South America, and it is one of them, the Pisco gavialis. We see a few of them at the shores of South America, alongside some sea sloths as well. Very interesting. Yeah. All right, next slide.
Yeah, I love all the pictures of the Thalassocnus, like with the
Yeah.
whales that would have like swam around in that area. Yeah, these crocodilians, yes. Cool.
All right, next slide. So now, regarding the living gharial species, again, so the first genus, Tomistoma, or the false gharial, so it should actually be a true gharial if we
Did the
but
falses
again,
cancel out?
yeah, the false cancels out, yeah.
Mhm.
So again, this also some interesting facts about this genus and species. The false gharial has the longest skull of the modern crocodilians. Like body-wise, it is not the biggest, of course, but it does have the longest skulls of all the modern crocodilians. And also correspondingly, it also has a very specialized diet regarding fish. Like it uses its long snout to go after fish. But it has been also known to go after the proboscis monkey as well, and also long-tailed macaques, deer, water birds, and reptiles. So it's not exclusively feeding on fish. So of course, the bulk of its diet is probably mostly fish. Yeah. And unfortunately, it is endangered according to the 2022 assessment. So there are about 2,500 or 10,000 mature individuals left in the wild. So not extremely endangered, but still not good. Yeah. Yeah, Smedia is also a good alternative name. The pseudo false gharial, which is a good way of saying false gharial. Yeah. All right, next slide. So now we have the actual gharial from India. It is again not the heaviest, but still it is the longest living crocodilian. From tip of the tail to the tip of the snout, it is the longest. Also a very specialized fish eater, but again, it does go after some other prey like soft shell turtles. It has been known to go to eat those. Also, despite the fact that it is very big, there's only one fatal human attack known. So it doesn't really it's not really aggressive towards humans, at least. only one fatal human attack that we know of. And as I mentioned before, the males of the gharials have a vocal structure, but they also have a protuberance at the tip of the snout, which resemble a earthen pot known locally as the gara, which is why the gharial is named after that pot from the same region. Yeah. Also, the male gharials are able to emit a sound that can be heard like 75 meters away. So yeah, they are pretty loud with the use of their vocal structures. And they are critically endangered. Like the populations have declined to fewer than 250 individuals in 2006 or 2006. So I don't know if their population has recovered since 2006, but yeah, it's not looking very good for them. Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned, we have like one genus or of extinct genus called the Gripposuchus from South America, and some studies have concluded that Gripposuchus is the ancestor to the modern gharial, the Indian gharial specifically, not the false gharial. So if this is true, then the Indian gharial is descendant of South American species. So they made quite a journey across maybe perhaps across the Atlantic and the Mediterranean Sea over there. Like, and we do have some fossils from Europe we also have some fossils of gharial relatives from Europe too. So yeah. All right, next slide. So now we move into the last branch of the crocodilians, the crocodiloidea, which includes the crocodiles and their relatives. And they are also based on the oldest fossils of this group. They originally had an Laurasian distribution, so they were from the northern continents, like Europe, Asia, and North America. And of course, from that location, they spread all over the world later on. Also, again, similar to the earliest alligatorids, the manner at which their teeth of the early crocodile relatives occluded in a similar way. They possess an overbite, like again, only modern alligatorids possess an overbite. But early on, the ancestors of the crocodiles also had an overbite. But then later on, the overbite was lost in the crocodiles. So now the modern crocodiles, their teeth like interlock, like a zipper almost. And you're probably familiar with that, yes. That the teeth of the modern crocodiles, they interlock each other like a zipper. And you can see an example of that on the left with the American crocodile skull with interlocking teeth. But you have like an extinct relatives or an extinct relative of the crocodiles on the bottom right from Germany, from a specimen from the Mesopit in Germany even. And you probably are familiar with that too, Jackson. It's also the same location where we get Ida from.
Yes.
The famous, a very famous fossil among the anthropologists. Yeah, and we have we have a crocodile relative from this location with an overbite, quite unlike modern crocodiles. All right, next slide. So among the crocodile relatives, we have an interesting like a subfamily. Although the Mycosuchinae is they have the subfamily prefix because it was originally believed they are part of the crocodile family, but now we believe that they fall outside the crocodile family, so they should be given a family status, in my opinion at least. But regardless, the Mycosuchinae is a very, very interesting group of crocodile relatives. They are they are an exclusively Australian radiation of crocodiles or crocodile relatives, and they also some of them are also found on like the let's see here. Sorry, just reading my notes. Sometimes I forgot to. Yes, there are also a few of them found on the islands of Vanuatu, Fiji, and New Caledonia as well, close by to the mainland of Australia. Yeah. So yeah. And the ancestors probably came from Southeast Asia via the same route as the marsupials from South America via Antarctica as well. Oh, so sorry. I read my note wrong. Sorry. So either the ancestors of the Mycosuchinae came from Southeast Asia, or they came by using the same route as the marsupials, by using South America and Antarctica to go to Australia. So there's some debate on their migrational history. So the adaptive radiation that this group in particular experienced was probably because there was a lack of large predators on the islands of Australia and also on the small islands of Fiji and New Caledonia and Vanuatu as well. And some of these Mycosuchinae became even terrestrial as well. So they are secondarily terrestrial. Their ancestors were probably semi-aquatic, like most crocodilians are now today as well. So we have a secondarily evolved terrestrial crocodiles on Australia, basically. And also one genus, the genus Mycosuchus, is hypothesized to have been arboreal, living in trees. Although this hypothesis is not very widely accepted, so it maybe was arboreal, but most researchers do not accept that it did live in trees. And also they became extinct fairly recently after the arrival of humans on the island, but there is also a debate on exactly what caused their extinction. Like some researchers do point toward human activity for their extinction, but the others may cite the fact that Australia became very dry at the same time. So either the dry conditions or human activity or both at the same time was the cause of their extinction on Australia. And I probably always suspect that like it's a very weird debate about human extinction. Like there's so many things became extinct after humans arrived, just coincidentally all over the world. Like I think it's pretty likely that humans are, if not the main driver of the extinction of many fauna around the world recently, after they have arrived. And yeah, right, Jackson. What do you think
regarding which part specifically?
Like in general, like I believe like it's just whenever humans arrived on a new continent, like when humans arrived
did
in
they
North
go extinct
America,
because of
for example.
humans?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
really am not familiar with the literature on this area. I'm not sure. I know in some places, you know, that we have good evidence that like humans arrived and then things went extinct. Some places like it was thought that, but it turned out they went extinct before humans showed up. So I'm not familiar with the literature here. I don't know.
It's just like it's such a coincidence that every time after humans arrived for the first time on a continent, like many large species or large body megafauna became extinct around the same time.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like that was part of it. If you had that hunting, the overhunting, but you also had other environmental factors, and that was sort of like a chain reaction that caused their loss. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Although I don't think that like overhunting is accepted nowadays. I would probably suspect that even the presence of humans, like changing the ecosystem, also was the main impact. Like not directly overhunting, but just like the use of fire to modify the environment could also have done a large have been a large impact on the environment as well. But yeah, in any case, we can move on to the next slide. And have you ever heard about the Mycosukine, Jackson?
I had not. The Quincana, I had heard of that one. I was not aware of the name of that group, though.
It's pretty interesting that there were like these secondarily terrestrial crocodiles living in Australia, which are unrelated to the modern crocodile.
Yeah, I mean, Australia has its weird insular fauna. I have heard of Voe robustus. I'm familiar with that one in this group. Yeah.
Yeah,
because we talked about it in the I's tale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also Voe is also part of this now the phylogeny that I'm now showing coincidentally. Yeah, they are within Voe is within the crown group of crocodiles. So within the Crocodilidae family, the family of crocodiles, we have like two branches. We have the first branch is the Osteoliminae, the bony throat crocs. That's the name translates to bony throat. And this Osteoliminae includes the slender snouted croc and also the dwarf croc in the same subfamily. And we also have they are an exclusively African offshoot of the Crocodilidae family. We also, like as you mentioned, the Voe is the horned crocodile from Madagascar, which was living on the island until the island's megafauna went extinct around 2,000 years ago. After the arrival of humans on the island, the Voe became extinct as well as other megafauna on the island of Madagascar. Although Voe was hypothesized to be part of this subfamily of Osteoliminae, recent paleogenomic studies showed that Voe is actually more closely related to the Crocodilus genus rather than the Osteoliminae crocs. And also, we have another gigantic extinct crocodilian called Euthycodon, which is a relative of the slender snouted croc. Euthycodon has a body length estimated to be up to 10 meters or 33 feet long. Probably maybe an overestimate, but even without this overestimate, it's probably still among the top 10 or top 20 biggest crocodilian relatives that we know of. It also has a very narrow gharial-like snout, but as you can see on the image on the bottom left, that's a Euthycodon. It has these grooves or margins within its snout where teeth from the upper and lower jaw or teeth. Sorry. It had these margins within the upper jaw to house the teeth from the lower jaw. So it was like a very, very tightly interlocked with the teeth like that. A very narrow snout. Like I think one of the most narrow snout, the narrowest snouted crocodilian relatives that we know of. Very thin. It's very weird because it probably did not go after very large prey because it was probably too fragile to go after, or too weak to go after a big prey. Probably mostly fed on fish. But of course, most crocodilians today feed on mostly fish. But probably this one was very exclusively fish eating, even though it was very big. Among the top 20 biggest crocodilians that we know of. And it also had like the tip of its snout was also slightly upturned for some reason. Yeah, very oddly shaped snout. All right, next slide. And we also have now we move into the genus Crocodilus, the stereotypical crocodile genus, and we also saw many extinct species of this genus as well. Like we have Crocodilus anthrophagus, which has been hypothesized to have been feeding on like our ancestors within Africa as well. You can see some paleo art depicting like some human relatives in the background as well. All right, next slide. And this is also some background on this. Like we have one extinct species called Crocodilus thorbjarnarsoni, which described in 2010. And this species was named in honor of a very famous conservationist called John B. Thorbjarnarson. And he was the biggest and the best among the reptile conservationists, specializing in conserving crocodilians as well, but also many other reptile species around the world. Like he was traveling all over the world, investing his entire life in saving these reptiles from extinction. But unfortunately, I don't know exactly when he was diagnosed, but he did contract malaria, and unfortunately he passed away at the age of 67. So it's a very, very big loss to the reptile community. He was very, very well missed. I've been told. Of course, I actually found about him. I learned about him after he had passed away. But I have seen some very passionate, like people among the reptile community, like mentioning this guy very emotionally. He was very well loved among his friends and peers. So yeah. Have you heard about him, Jackson, or maybe?
No, I've never heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
He's also
not offhand. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. He's also, I believe, he's from Iceland as well. Hence the name, hence his last name.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, with a name like that, yeah.
It's also ironic that someone from Iceland has invested his entire life in conserving reptiles, and reptiles are not very well known from Iceland, of course. Yeah. Very, very it's a very sad story that he was traveling all over the world, and of all things he contracted malaria. Very unfortunate. Mm-hmm. He will be missed. All right, next slide. All right, so now we also have we're now covering the living crocodiles, and the first genus to cover is the genus of slender-snouted crocodile. So we have now two species, one West African slender-snouted crocodile, critically endangered, and we also have the Central African slender-snouted crocodile. Although in this case, this is something a fairly recent update. Like recent studies has shown that it was once thought that they were one species, but now fairly recently, based on DNA evidence, it has been shown that the Central African population is a separate species from the West African population, and this is the reason why the new species was not separately assessed based on the conservation status. So they probably are both critically endangered still, I would probably guess. So especially if they are critically endangered combined, they probably are both critically endangered when separated from one another. Yeah. It's also interestingly that the two populations are separated by a volcanic line, the Cameroon volcanic line, which is responsible for like a mountain range within Central Africa, and that's probably the reason, or maybe the geographic barrier that has driven these two populations to be genetically isolated from one another. All right, next slide. And I believe we can. We have still 15 minutes more to go, but I believe we can make it until the very end.
Yeah.
All right. Our next genus of crocodile, the genus Osteolemus, the dwarf crocodiles, and we also have some a debate about this too. Of just the first species, Osteolemus tetraspis, the African dwarf crocodile. It's this one is vulnerable, not critically endangered, but still vulnerable, at least according to a very old assessment from 1996. It's the most recent assessment it has. So I hope it's not endangered today. Oh yeah. So this one deserves a recent a more updated assessment. Yeah. Also, a notable fact is that there are individuals of the species living in the caves of Abanda, which and the individuals that lives in these caves, they feed on bats and crickets of these caves. They are also completely blind, and the skin of these individuals have turned orange because they are exposed to the alkaline of bat guano. So they have they almost have like a cave dwelling subpopulation, which does I believe they don't interbreed with the surface dwellers. So they are almost like evolving to be what was the term again for cave dwellers? The scientific name.
Troglobiontic.
Yeah, the
Troglodytic,
troglobiontic.
either way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like they are becoming that, at least.
That is pretty
in the
wacky.
closeness of that.
I've never heard of these guys. That's wacky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we have also another species, the Osteolemus osborni, the Osborn's dwarf crocodile, named in honor of Henry Fairfield Osborn, which is again an anthropologist. Which coincidentally, this was the guy who has proposed the Nebraska man, right? The same guy, or not? I believe so, right?
Oh, who named Nebraska Man? Yes, that was Osborne.
Yeah. Yes. Coincidentally. So this piece was named
Well, I
after.
mean, he was
Mhm.
he was doing lots of paleontology stuff. It just so happened that
Mhm.
he got something wrong one time.
Yeah. So this species is the smallest crocodile. No, not the smallest crocodilian, but it is the smallest crocodile within the Crocodilidae family. And it was first classified as a separate genus in 1919, but it was then reduced to a subspecies in 1961. But based on morphology and genetic studies, it indicates that this species Osborni is now there are now 3 distinct populations of Osborn's dwarf crocodile. So they now has gained species status in 2021. So very recent species change. Yeah. All right, next slide. So now we move into the genus crocodiles again. Now regarding the living members of the crocodile species. So we have the freshwater crocodile from Australia and the New Guinea crocodile from New Guinea. And both of them are not endangered, luckily. Also, one trivia about the New Guinea crocodile. In 2019, the southern lowland population has been recognized as a new species. So now the New Guinea crocodile is now split into 2 species. So we have a highland and a lowland species of New Guinea crocodile. And also, yeah, I we have 10 more minutes to go, so I won't cover every single note on the slide. So if you want, you can read the notes that I have written on their diet and behaviors. All right, next slide. So now we also have more Indonesian crocodilians or crocodiles in the genus Crocodilus. We have the Philippine crocodile, which is critically endangered. Like it's probably the most endangered crocodilian that we know of, with less than 100 non-hatchling adults estimated to be in the wild. Less than 100. It is pretty insane that they are so. They are hanging on by a thread, basically. They're also very important in the ecology by keeping fish populations in check. So they are very important component in their ecology or ecosystem. And we have also a famous species, the saltwater crocodile. Famous because it is the largest living crocodilian, but also the largest living reptile as well. And it is also a man-eater. Like it will recognize a human as prey and will go after a human to eat it. So like most crocodilians, they are dangerous. Like many crocodiles are dangerous and they can do pretty harm. But most crocodilians won't actively hunt humans. They will actually tend to stay away from humans, most of them. But the saltwater crocodile, no, the saltwater crocodile will go after you if it has the chance to do so. All right, next slide. And again, if you have any commentary to say, Jackson, just interrupt me. So I'm just trying.
I'm just
to
enjoying
cover
listening.
the last. Yeah, I'm just covering the last few slides before we finally finish this. All right, so next we have the Siamese crocodile, also critically endangered. It's now it's extinct in like 99% of its original range.
Oof.
It's also very small range remaining. Yeah, oof indeed. Also among the most endangered crocodilians that we know of, and also very understudied as well. The next species of crocodilus is the mugger crocodile from India. This is the crocodilian with the broadest snout among the living crocodilians, the one with the broadest snout. It's also very interesting trait. It is notable for its use of tools. So what it will do is it will grab during the season when birds are nesting. What this crocodile does, it will grab a branch and it will balance the branch on its snout, trying to lure birds who are like building nests. So it's still using. Very interesting. So whenever a bird comes and grab a branch,
Clever girl.
Yeah, clever girl indeed. Yeah, exactly. And it's also its status is vulnerable, not endangered, but still close to being endangered. All right, next slide. So now we go. We have like in the previous few slides, we have covered the species from the Indo-Pacific, and they are also closely related. Like the species that we found in Australia, Indonesia, and such, they are more closely related to each other in the same clade, basically. But now we move on to the African species of crocodilus. So we have one species, the Nile crocodile, and also the West African crocodile. So the Nile crocodile, again, is also not the largest of the saltwater crocodile is larger than this one, but still the Nile crocodile is also very big, and it's also a man-eater. It will also actively hunt humans if given the chance, and it's also responsible for the most deaths annually. Like the Nile crocodile has been known to kill hundreds or thousands of humans annually. Yeah, so be careful when you're in Africa.
I will. I'll be careful next time I'm over there.
Yeah. And they are also not endangered. Neither although the West African crocodile is not assessed. separate. Like it's also interestingly that the West African crocodile used to be included within the Nile crocodile in the same species, but now recently it has been given a separate status as a new species.
I think
There's
it
also-
is
yeah.
very funny that it is called a crocodilus suchus, the crocodile.
Yes. Yeah. It's also a bit of a lore behind the species of this. Like the species was given a name in as far back as 1807, based on mummified remains of Egypt, and they were, which is also and these mummified remains were notably different from mummified remains of the Nile crocodile. So they were recognized as a separate species back then, but then later scientists did not recognize this as a valid species until the early 2000s, when they were shown, based on the genetics, they were shown that the West African crocodile and the Nile crocodile are not even closely related. The Nile crocodile is more closely related to the neotropical crocodile species from the Americas. So they aren't even closely related at all, which is pretty wild to think of. The Nile crocodile is more closely related to the American crocodiles than it is to the West African crocodile. So probably like a population of Nile crocodile was the ancestor of the American crocodiles. So yeah. There's also one thing to mention about that today, the two species of Nile crocodile and West African crocodiles, they have a very different distributions with little overlap with each other. You can also see the map on the top left right there, with the blue denoting Crocodilus suchus, or the West African crocodile, and the pink denoting the range for the Nile crocodile. And they are also found on Madagascar as well. Some of the Nile crocodile populations are also on Madagascar. And so the distributions have little overlap, but in the past, especially during the time when Africa was a lot more humid, they probably had a lot more broader distribution than today. Of course, because when the continent was a lot more humid and a lot more wet, you would of course expect that the ranges was probably a lot larger than it is now. Yeah. All right, next slide. So now we move on to the neotropical group of crocodiles. So first we have the Morelet's crocodile, which is well known to go after, or it's an opportunistic predator. If given it a chance, it will go after large animals too. But it is also known to be prey to the jaguar. So you probably have seen like this video of a jaguar just diving into water and then pulling up a crocodile. So yeah, and that's the Morelet's crocodile. So it's prey to the jaguar. I believe it's the only. I don't know of any other instance where a mammal will go after a crocodilian. Pretty weird, yeah. All right. And then the next, this is probably my favorite of the living crocodilians, the Cuban crocodile, which is critically endangered, unfortunately. And as the name suggests, it's found on the island of Cuba. It's also it's the most aggressive and territorial of the neotropical crocodiles. It is also the most terrestrial of the living crocodilians. It spends most. It doesn't spend most of its time on land, but it does spend more time on land than any other crocodilian that we know of. And it also has horns at the back of its skull, the Cuban crocodile. And it's also rather intelligent as well. It exhibits pack hunting behavior. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right, next slide. Are you okay if you go over time, Jackson? Because we only have a few more slides to go. Then we are finished.
Yeah, three slides, including this one.
Yes. All right. So now we have now 2 more species. We have the Orinoco crocodile, also critically endangered from South America. Very aggressive and dangerous, but although the attacks on humans are very rare because they have a very small population. And then we are last but not least, we have the American crocodile from Central America and also from South America. And they are rather timid by crocodiles. Then, like many crocodiles are very aggressive, but this is rather timid compared to the other ones. They
Also,
will flee
the-
from humans.
Only crocodile that shares space with alligators.
Yeah. Yes.
In Florida is the place where they overlap.
Yeah. But of course, they are still dangerous because they are still very big, of course. And when attacks do occur, they are often fatal. So they won't attack. They will rather flee from you. But when provoked, they will kill you. So yeah. So don't poop the snoot, as they say. All right. So and their conservation status is vulnerable. Not endangered, but still close to being endangered. All right. Next slide.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
And that's how I feel after finishing my slides. All right, and that's it. We are finished with the
Huzzah! Yay!
Pseudosuchians.
You did it!
I hope it wasn't too much of information. I just want to do the crocodilians just.
I think now we can use this to drop on anyone who ever says that crocodilians are living fossils. You know, we can just drop this on them like a ton of bricks.
Yeah. I'm familiar with the meme where like you see Patrick the starfish like sitting on the sofa, and you have like SpongeBob like tearing up the wall and tearing up another wall, showing this, and tearing up another wall, showing that. Like maybe
Yeah, he's like, but what about this? What about this?
What about this? What this?
Yeah, and it like
So-
opens the window and it's like a whole
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's a good meme. Yeah, it was interesting. I liked it. Peter, do we have a show for next week, or do I need to find something?
That's a really good question. We still had we were in the speech Stephen Meyer gave. We
hadn't finished that?
No, we haven't. We haven't.
Okay. All right, we can finish that. There can't be much time on that left, right?
Mhm.
I honestly,
Somebody is.
I might be able to check. Let me check real quick.
I heard a dinosaur, a theropod.
Yeah,
over there.
he's settled down a little bit, but at times he was making so much noise that I couldn't hear when Nesslig said next slide. So I have to speak to him after this show because he was so loud it was insane.
Somebody in live it says, "Oh wow, I thought, the thought of pack hunting crocodiles is wild." Yeah, I didn't like before. I did some research on making these slides. I never thought that there were pack hunting crocodiles out there. Yeah, and that's also one reason why I think the Cuban crocodile is my favorite of all the crocodilians.
Yeah.
Regarding the extinct ones, my favorite extinct ones were the Thalattosuchians. So I think those are my favorite extinct crocodilian relatives.
By the way, Jackson,
what do you think? What's your favorite, living or extinct?
What is my favorite? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I do like. I don't know. I like the Adosaurs. They're kind of cool. They're pretty neat.
Yeah.
The like some of the Phytosaurs are pretty cool.
They're all very cool.
Yeah, just kind of a smattering. I think Desmatosuchus is really neat just because it really took the whole like ankylosaur thing to a whole new level.
Yeah.
So, I thought that was pretty cool. What did you say, Peter?
So I checked. We are at 56:16 in that video, and the video runs for an hour and 39 seconds. So, less than 5 minutes left.
Yeah, so we need to get a new video.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is
I'll look for
good,
something to send to you.
considering it's Stephen Meyer.
True, I am also ready to stop watching Stephen Meyer.
Yeah. Also, Jackson, if
Um,
you've seen the recent video by Dr. Stern Cardinal, Creation Myths, about the response to the junk DNA video.
Oh, no, I haven't. I watched his back and forth with Luskin, and I imagine it's kind of the same thing. I mean,
No,
they have.
it's the same thing, but he in
Yeah.
that new video, he's specifically responding to our dear friend. Long story short.
Yeah, long story short, doesn't even do. He's downstream of the professionals, so like, if they don't have anything, he definitely doesn't have anything. So
Yeah.
anyway,
It's just the same arguments. Like it's
they're just in
just a
prettier
rundown.
animation, basically.
Yeah, it's recycled. Polishing a turd. It's still a turd. Yeah.
Correct. I mean, and what's so sad about it? His animation is very good. I like it. If it were not used for
Yeah.
evil, it'd be quite nice. I think he does. He makes some very good animations. He makes very cute videos. So it's sad. So let's see. So coming up, also the Velvet Worm's tale is finished. It's written and it's been edited and everything. So I just need to put that into.
I did not review that the text yet for.
Oh, okay. Well,
or if you want me to, or
I do want to.
Oh,
I saw there were edits on it. I thought that was yours. So
yeah, I only reviewed the other text. So
the
far.
secret text. I got you. Yeah. Okay. Well. The Velvet Worm's tale is almost done. We're almost there with it. Once Nesslig reviews it, then it will be written. Oh, theropod on the loose. Then there will only be 10 videos in the Ancestors' Tale left. So we're done. Once we're done with this, we're done with the protostomes, and then we can move on to the Nidarians. So we'll have left the Triploblasts, and the Bilaterians. So we're getting close to the end of the animals. I think there's only like 2 animal tales left, or 3. Sorry, because it's the jellyfish, the polypifer, which is a coral, and then the sponge, and then we'll be done with animals in their totality. How about that?
Yay.
It's only been like 4 years. So, yep.
Well, what's the year of the first video again? 4 years?
Oh, let me look. Hold on. Let me take a little look. See, I think it has been 4 years. Let's see. YouTube Studio was the first one. That was the Tasmanian's Tale. That came out on April 27th, 2021.
Yeah.
So it's been almost 4 years.
Almost 4 years. Mm-hmm. I also remember how long did Arn Ross series take about the systematic classification?
Also yeah, probably years. A little while. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're gonna do it. We're gonna get through the Ancestors' Tale, and then we've got a climate change series we're gonna do in a sort of similar style, but it's gonna be antagonistic. So that's on the future. RJ and I are in the process of finishing The Rocks for their Volume 2. Yes.
Would you be interested in having a primatologist on? Who's also
love having guests.
Who's also an actress and a stand-up comedian.
Yeah. You're talking about Natalia Reagan?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, she can come on. Yeah, no problem. I've never received any messages from her. Or if you want to,
well, I'm trying to help out to get her on a few other channels and also get some people I know on her channel. So, because that's basically what I do.
We haven't ever on. So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so we're just chugging along over here. RJ and I are working on Rocks Volume 2, so we're getting there. Okay. Well, thank you, Nesslig, and thank everybody in the live chat for watching, and we will see
Oh,
all of
you're
you.
frozen.
Wow, I froze
Sorry.
right at the very last second. Okay. And we will see all of you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye all.